Are you overwhelmed with your current caseload? Could you use some help with your skip trace assignments? With Merlin Locate Services, rather than adding staff, you can add an entire skip trace department of licensed private investigators who specialize in skip tracing. Check out merlinlocate.com today. When you work with Merlin Locate Services, you bring on a valuable experience and trusted extension to your team.
Crosstracks case management system. That is what we are talking about today. Are you using a case management system? What are you waiting for? If you don't use a case management system, you really need to look into implementing that into your business regimen. I've been at it with Crosstracks now a little over a year, and it's just been a game changer for my business. They are SOC 2 certified, SOC 2 Type 2 certified. If you don't know what that means, it means that their encryption system is second to none, and you have to go through a whole screening process to figure out if you can even qualify for that, and they have. So you know with certainty your data is being protected. I don't think there's another case management system out there that offers that same ability to have the SOC 2 Type 2 certification. As you guys know, I've been singing the praises of Crosstracks, and I really believe in this product, and I believe you should check it out. Contact Brad, contact Pat, one of the team members over there, and see if it's right for you. Crosstracks case management system, check it out today.
Welcome to today's show. We're honored to welcome Peter Psarouthakis from Michigan. Peter has served on the boards of NALI, NCISS, ISPLA, and his own state association. He had the honor of contributing on several bills that the Michigan governor signed into law, including a GPS bill. Peter joins us today to talk about ethics. You can never learn enough about this topic. Peter brings a solid 26 years of experience to the table. So please welcome Peter and your host, Private Investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everybody to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Today I have the great honor of welcoming Peter Psarouthakis to the program today. Peter is involved in many associations, and apparently he does many different things. And what a wealth of information. Somebody who was involved very early on in writing ethics codes and helping out national associations with forming guidelines. So I asked Peter to come on to talk about ethics today. So Peter, I want to invite you to the program. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine, man. It's really just an honor to have you on. I know we've actually met in person, which was pretty cool for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's this tall guy walking around? And what made it harder, I guess, well, not so much there. We were down in North Carolina or South Carolina. I'm sorry,
South Carolina, yeah.
And one of the things I was really worried about was folks wearing masks and me not recognizing them. Like I had a few people come up and say hello to me, and I'm just like, "Hi, what's up? Who are you? I don't recognize you." That was definitely a real problem, and a good problem to have that we were able to meet in person.
Yeah, it was nice.
So before we jump into the topic, tell me a little bit about your background, lay the foundation of how you got into the business and what you do.
Well, I've been my own agency, EWI and Associates here in Michigan, for 26 years this year. Wow. And going strong and enjoy it. Do a lot of background investigations is a strong part, and technical surveillance countermeasures provided for corporate and government agencies throughout Michigan and around the country.
Okay.
So it's been an exciting, good career, and very happy with it, and continue on. Don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And then as far as professionally in the association world, I've been involved in a lot of things. I was the ASIS Investigations Council Chair, president for 2 or 3 terms of my state association here in Michigan. Mm-hmm. Served as the disciplinary chair for NALI, helped write as the chair for the ethics committee for NCISS, their code of ethics. And then, of course, now for quite a few years now, I've been the executive director for Intellenet, which has really been the pinnacle for me of everything I've been involved in.
Yeah, what a great association, folks. If you are unfamiliar with Intelnet, definitely go check it out. There's some real prestige to actually being a part of that association. It's not easy to get into. You really you got to know your stuff. But the wealth
that way.
Yeah, and the wealth of information that you get out of it. I mean, what a strong networking. I think it's 10 years, right? You have to be in business for 10
Yeah, you
years.
have to have a minimum of 10 years and go through a complete background check. There's no other group or association that I'm aware of that has such an extensive background, as well as require that 10-year minimum investigative experience. So it puts us above, and it's nice. That doesn't take away from all the other wonderful associations out there, which some I just mentioned and others I've belonged to in the past. Everything has its place.
Yeah, it was just the last episode, and Jay Marin and I were actually talking about that, about how important it is from a networking stance to be a part of many of these associations. Like one just won't do it, and how it actually makes you better at running your own operation because of the ability to handle all different types of work through different people that have specialties. It's almost like a no-brainer.
It's nice when you get a call from a client and they need something that, not everybody can be an expert in everything. We hear that all the time in this profession. Everybody seems to know, not everybody, but a lot of people will say they know, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Well, the reality is you can't do everything, but you can definitely find somebody that can do it for and help your client. And belonging to groups like Intelnet and NALI and those, you can reach out and get help and ask, so you can provide that business service, because we're all business people first, to that investigative service we're selling to the clients and make them happy. And as a result, we're happy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is, like for me, for instance, when I started my business, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep it like real specific. I'm going to do like 7 or 8 things, and that's it. And I don't want to say no to the other work that comes in, but I don't want to do that work because I shouldn't be doing that work. It's not my specialty, right? So that idea of joining these other associations, and I started with my state association, and I serve on the board on my state association too, and I've been involved with all that, and then branched out to more of the national ones, and then even like one of the things I'm doing now is like I'm going to different state associations and I'm joining them as an affiliate member. Right. Why not, right? Why not? If it gives me access to their message boards, if it gives me access to keeping my finger on the pulse as to what's going on around the country, why not? It's not a big investment, right? Like what I did with George Gerges with InSpy. We were at a NALI event, and I was like, "Hey, you join mine, I'll join yours." I signed them up for New York, and I signed up for Indiana. So, here you go. Everybody.
I joined Scally when I was down there at the conference that we co-hosted with them down there, and why not support them and get some networking and get I belong to, I don't know what my annual dues are combined, but I guarantee you it's a lot less than the one case. One case covers half of one case will cover my membership dues, all the associations I belong to. So I mean, it's just worth it. And you meet all these wonderful people, and you're involved in things, the education, which is huge for me. We don't have continuing education requirement here in Michigan, but who cares? It's on me to do that, and it's important. So,
that's a good point. So, and that covers part of like the ethics of what we're going to get into too. Like there should be a responsibility on your end, even though you're not required to do, because New York's the same way. We don't have continuing education credit. Pretty much can you pay the money? If you can pay the money, you got the license.
Right.
You got to take the test first, but once you've taken the test, you got to continue to pay the money. But I think there's it's almost like a fiduciary responsibility, kind of, if you're doing personal injury work, that you need to be the very best at what you're doing, right? You're tasked with helping these people solve whatever conflict there is, right? Whatever side you're on, there's money involved, right? It's one way or the other. And if you're not the very best at what you do, are you really doing what you should be doing? I think you bring up a really good point.
Well, that's why, but the network is, I used to do surveillance all the time. You'll never catch me in a surveillance anymore.
Yeah,
I've done my time. Not to
Me
take
too.
away from people that want to do it, but I have folks that do it for me now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I look at it as, well, I've earned the right. I paid my dues. And I have a bigger business now. So, I have people do it. I don't think it would be fair to my client after not being in a surveillance for the last probably 6-7 years for me to jump in a vehicle and run a professional surveillance as opposed to folks that are doing it every day and know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do that to my client.
Even with, with what your rate is, I'm sure your rate is much higher for the work that you do than the typical surveillance. So not only are you doing surveillance when you shouldn't be doing surveillance, but you also have to pay what your hourly rate is. You got to get paid for it.
Right. I want to have the best possible product for my client as I can. And our product is gathering information, right? That's what investigators do. We're not in the decision-making business.
So what was the passion or the drive to get involved on serving on all these boards? Because it's impressive, actually, having gone through. Like, what was your thought process or decision or drive to really say, like, hey, this is something I want to get more involved with?
Well, I went to my first state association meeting back in, I don't know, 98, 99, something like that. And I looked at these guys and back in those days, it was like people showing up wearing their guns. It was kind of a good old boy network. And there was stuff happening in the legislature that was going to impact us all. And that kind of just a light went on. This would be a good venue to get involved in and organize and be proactive. So that's exactly what I did. I joined. I went to the board meetings, eventually got myself on the board. I got a leadership position. I got other people that also were proactive in leadership positions. We modernized things, and then we headed off to our state capital in Lansing and started doing things. Yeah. And we saw immediate positive impact because of that. And that, along with all that, put my name out there. And people started referring things and calling me. And then one step led to another. Then I got involved in national stuff. And then the networking. And actually, I really enjoy it too, just working with a team of other professionals on things that benefit the whole profession as a whole. It's a lot of fun. I loved going and lobbying in our state capital in Washington, D.C. I still do it in different ways now, but I had the ability in my staff actually helped to write my own words in 4 different laws in the state of Michigan.
That's awesome.
It's cool. It doesn't say Peter Psarouthakis next to it, but I know I was there and I wrote it. Mm-hmm. Like we have a GPS exemption here, help write that. We have a concealed pistol license exemptions, help write that. Our state licensing laws help state write that. And, that's exciting stuff and kind of leaves a legacy. I enjoy it.
That's great. So you help the Cowboys put the guns away, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm a gun guy. Don't get me wrong. I love guns, but there's time and place.
Right. Nothing's on the hip anymore.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And that's legacy. And like for me in New York, I was recruited. Somebody identified me as being somebody who just had a passion for what they did and thought I'd be a good regional director. So I started as an RD in the New York State Association. And then that became the secretary. And then they tried to hoodwink me to become the treasurer. And I'm like, no, I'll stick on the secretary. So I did an extra term as secretary and became second VP. And now I'm first VP in New York. And I guess.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be assuming the bottom doesn't fall out or the natural line of succession goes. I think it'll be 2024. I think. 22 and 23. So I'll get 21 and 22. I'll get sworn in 23. hopefully. Again, if the bottom doesn't fall out. And I got to say, one of the things that really impacted me was joining NCISS and going to Hit the Hill, and really seeing why it's so important. I mean, someone can come and read a report and they can tell you about what's going on, and that's all good. But to go to the Capitol and actually roam the halls of the Capitol, trying to talk to senators and congressmen and women, and really educate, not them, because the chances of you actually meeting and sitting down with one of these people are very slim, and they're really not the people you want to talk to anyway. It's more along the lines of the communication directors, the people that read the bills, and the people that go through and then tell the senator or congressman, like, hey, here are the bullet points here, and here's why I think we should go that way. So to educate them on what a private investigator does and why it's important for us to be able to do what we do, ethically, right? Staying within the ethics of what we are and what we're doing. They're like, wow, I never realized that. I'm just, I'm used to seeing Sam Spade on TV or The Last Boy Scout, Bruce Willis, this blown out, recovering alcoholic private investigator. Like that is, that's the rap that we get. And a lot of these people I found that I sat down and talked with, they had no idea. They had no idea that we had like a code of ethics or standards or any of this. They just thought it was like the Wild West,
Well, what's interesting though, you bring up a good point. How long ago was that you did that for the first time?
Oh God, not long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so the first NCISS conference, Hit the Hill, I went to, and I agree that it's a wonderful event and very fond memories of doing that. Was it back in, it's either 20 or 21 when or 20 or 2001, excuse me, that I went. And the exact same issues you were just talking about are still the same. They have no idea what worked, who we are, what we're doing. They get all their ideas from TV. It's funny how it just doesn't change. And we're such a small profession. It's hard to make, in the big scheme of things with all the lobbyists and stuff in Washington, D.C. and around the country, an impact that sticks with them. So we got to keep that fight going, I guess, is my point. And by you just recently being there and having to say the same things that I said back in 2000, or all of us said, it's an ongoing battle that'll never end.
Well, there's just a lot of turnover too.
That's a big part of that battle. Absolutely.
I'm talking staffers, like not just the congressmen and women and senators.
Oh, those staffers are the most important, like you point out, those legislative aides, those young folks in their 20s and early 30s are actually making most of the decisions. What's going on in this country. It's not the member of Congress that a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. One of the cool things that happened, it's just amazing being in the right place at the right time, and really, just really seeing the importance of doing what we do and all that. So I had gone to Hit the Hill, and I'm from New York, right? So who are you going to go see? You're going to go see Gillibrand, Schumer, all that. So I was able to schedule an appointment with Charles Schumer's office, and I met with his communications director, and she spent probably an hour with me. It was a good conversation. It was very cool. And, we exchanged cards and we kept in contact for a little bit. Nothing really came out of it. It's like, he's the minority head at the time. It's like, he's got to go party line. Like there's no, you're not changing anybody's mind on anything. Right. But still establishing the rapport. Right. So fast forward to COVID and me personally knowing somebody that was trying to get the transfusion. Right, when they were taking the people that had antibodies and doing transfusions with them, this was somebody I knew who was a retired New York State trooper who was really suffering. I mean, he was on death's doorstep. It was really, really bad, and there was a lot of bureaucracy to getting him that transfusion. So I'm like, who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know? Oh, I know the communications director for Charles Schumer. Let me reach out to them and see what they can do. She took my call. And she helped facilitate. Now, I don't know if it was me personally doing that or whatever, but within a day, this guy got the transfusion they need, and he lived, and had he not gotten that, he probably would have died. He was on a ventilator for a very long time. So it's like you understand the importance of relationship, right?
Right.
Who would have known that trip down to Washington, would have given me
Absolutely.
the opportunity, And like I said, do I know if that's the reason it happened? I don't. But, I like to think maybe it helped, maybe.
Hey, making connections is, meeting people in our world is positive.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what it could bring? Reaching out and saying hi,
Yeah.
More people are, in my opinion, there are more nice people in the world out there than there are the negative ones. So
yeah.
Doesn't hurt to network.
And it really does add to the prestige of what you do personally as a business owner, right? I know, like when I go to meetings and I'm giving my spiel and my pitch, and it's like, okay, so I'm first VP in my state association. I'm also on the board of this national association, and we lobby and we protect the rights of investigators. And I always relate it. Personal injury attorneys are my bread and butter. They have their trial lawyers association. I said it's the same thing as your trial lawyers association, except our lobbyist is looking after us. So they relate to it, and they understand the importance of it and the prestige. And they're like, wow, this guy really cares about what he does in his industry. I know that if I'm hiring this person to do this, ethically, they're going to be where they need to be. And I know that the skill level is probably there too, that they really have a passion for what they do. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it, right?
No, I'd agree.
So we're going to step out and take a quick break. We did start to creep into the ethics stuff, but I really wanted to hammer down and focus on that. And I really hit on some points and just things to cover, some do's and don'ts. And there's been some uh-ohs in the news, some people. So we're going to talk about that too. So everybody sit tight. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Delft Point keeps on advancing. The commonality search is here. The new data is unlike anything they currently offer and will go in depth into your target's assets and relationships. Use them on everything from jury research and associate connections to business investigations and fraud cases. You don't want to miss these. Visit delftpoint.com for more details. Sign up and use code PIP20 for additional savings. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Have you heard about this year's Osmosis Conference? It's back to a live event in San Diego, California, from October 10th to October 12th. The event is available both live and virtually. Learn more at osmosiscon.com. PI Perspectives. Check out the latest issue of PI Magazine. Bob Macwiak graces the cover, and there's a great article on how the magazine was started. Available today.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are honored to have Peter Psarouthakis with us. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Really appreciate being here.
Yeah. So again, you have had an amazing career, 26 years this year. You have been involved in writing legislation for your state, which is pretty amazing, or contributing, right? Not writing, contributing. Wow, how cool is that to to have a seat in that room, right? To even someone ask you what's your input on this? Why is this important? That's some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's a great moment. I've had two different governors I've been able to stand next to at their desk because they signed stuff that I helped write into law.
Nice.
One of them was the GPS law, and then another time was for our state licensing law amendment. Right. And it's an exciting thing. Stuff you would never think you were doing.
Very, very cool. So let's rewind a little bit and let's talk about the everyday investigator, the person who's maybe just getting into the industry, right? They've coming out of law enforcement, or they're coming out of school, or whatever, maybe coming out working for somebody and now they're working for themselves. ethically, what do you think are some of the issues and things that this investigator doesn't think of or should keep in mind as they're now putting a shingle on their door saying, I'm open for business?
Well, obviously, they got to know their state laws. They got to know what they can and cannot do after they figured out what the type of business they want to run. You got to remember, investigations covers the gambit. You could be an vehicle accident investigator or surveillance operator or, what have you, interviewer, or, do plaintiff stuff to criminal defense, insurance fraud, blah, blah, blah. It just goes on, right? So once you figured out what you want to do, which probably in most cases, you're generally seeing that most people are starting in the business are kind of offering everything. A lot of them are doing surveillance or process serving or just because it's a big part of the business, especially the surveillance for insurance companies and that kind of thing. But they need to know the laws in their state. Sure. Do they need to be licensed in their state? Do they need to be insured and bonded? Do they need, how can they conduct surveillance in their state? Do they know the privacy laws? Do they know that, federal difference between the federal and state laws on privacy issues and case laws? They got to go out there and get some education.
Yeah.
You can't assume just because you spent the last 25 to 30 years on a police department, you know how it's going to be in the private sector. What I find through my career is that many people in law enforcement are wonderful investigators, but they have absolutely no clue, a lot of them, want to get in private sector, how to ethically and legally at times get information. Not to suggest that they're out there trying to get it illegally, but they just don't have the resources like they did when they were in law enforcement that they can't tap into anymore, or they shouldn't be tapping into anymore, more importantly. And the only place to really reach out for that is to take some sort of courses or be involved in some sort of association where you can go to conferences and learn and talk to other professionals that have more experience in the private sector than you.
Sure.
And ask questions and say, how do I go about doing this? Or if I do this, is it wrong? Or, everybody makes mistakes, myself included. I still make mistakes all the time. But, the thing with ethics, the key component of ethics is do no harm. You look it up. I mean, everybody should have read should read Kitty Haley's book on ethics.
She's awesome.
And Kitty's a good friend of mine, and a definite professional, and you should see her if she speaks somewhere. But her book really pushed out. You don't even have to agree with all of her book, but ethics are something that's evolving, and you have to be. It's like a living document in a way. It's always kind of changes. Life's different from 1940s in the United States than it is today in 2021.
I don't think you can say ethics and private investigator and not talk about Kitty or Kelly Riddle. Like these are people it's just these are the folks you lean on. And I'll give you a good example. Me personally, that came across something. Where I was stumped and I didn't know what to do. And what did I do? I reached out to the folks that I know and trust, and on a national scale, and say, hey, this presented itself. Mm-hmm. What do I do? And in this particular instance, I had a personal injury attorney who I hit a home run for him on this case. I was able to get the witness that was not going to cooperate after not cooperating for about 8 years. I came in at the end and just, the kid's gloves, laid it down and got it done. And they ended up settling the case for like $7 or $8 million. And it was a big case. And the attorney goes to me, he says, I want to give you a bonus. And I'm like, the alarm goes off. Uh-oh. Can I take bonus money? Right. And listen, if you ask my wife, she's like, don't be a moron, take the money, I'm like, no, I gotta look into this. Right. Mm-hmm. So what did I do? I started reaching out to people I knew, nationally, and people I very much respect and said, hey, this is the situation here. What should I do? And of course, what's the amount? Right. That's a factor too. And, what are we really talking about here? What's the parameters? And I reached out to people who I know from the Trial Lawyers Association who are part of their ethics committee too, and saying, without naming names here,
Right.
I had an attorney, approach me and they would like to give me a bonus before I accept anything, and then I actually talked to my accountant. What do I do here? Right. So the gist of it, what it came down to was if the attorney was giving me the bonus from his own personal checking account and he was not taking that money as a disbursement from his client, if he chooses to give you that money, you're golden. However, you have to declare that money, no matter what the amount is,
Right.
You better declare it on your taxes, which is a no-brainer anyways. So here's one of the reasons why I feel that stuff is important as an investigator, the ethical question here. We testify all the time, right? So we get it called up and it's the job of whoever's on the other side to confuse us, make us look bad, do whatever, even if we're not doing anything inappropriate, to create the specter of impropriety. It can be a career ender for us. Because if you're burned on the stand and they can't use you because you're not a good witness or you've got some shady stuff in your past, it's a problem. It could definitely come back and haunt you. What's your take on all that stuff?
Well, I think that you're right. I mean, assuming you are testifying, I probably disagree with you that a majority of us do testify in court a lot. I mean, I happen to, but out of all the investigators in this country, I think it's less than more that are actually testifying in court.
That's a fair statement. But I think you have to prepare, though. To always be prepared.
That's what I'm about to say. But I would say you should definitely assume you're going to end up in court when you're doing things in your investigations, and always think about where can I end up with this? Where's my work product ending up? Where will I end up? Will I end up in court or a deposition? Will I end up in front of law enforcement, potentially being questioned, depending on the kind of cases you are involved in? And, again, you got to go back to that do no harm. You got a duty to your clients. You got a duty to yourself and your family. Never forget that.
Of course.
That's number one on my list. Ethics can be a tough time. We all fail. I've made mistakes, but having people to go to, back to kind of your point, belonging to an association or going to conferences, you meet people, you become work friends, if you will, colleagues that you can then reach out to privately with an ethical dilemma like you had. Or I've seen it right on the Intelnet listserv, and I've seen it at other associations I belong to. Somebody put something out there and said, I'm not sure this is what's presented to me. I'm not sure what to do. Could I have some input? And that may start a huge, maybe crazy conversation, but out of that, they may get some input that helps them ultimately make the decision, because they're going to have to make the decision ultimately. We can give all the advice we want, but the individual investigators have to make the decision whether they're going to do the right thing in their mind or not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in my career, we have a lot of, to use your words earlier, cowboys in our profession. Some are really well known, and everybody knows the stuff they're doing and is well aware of it, and yet nothing happens to some of these folks.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, one of them gets popped, which is good. We've seen big names in California and around the country, did prison time, and just recently with the PDJ case, we're looking at people that are being convicted of inappropriate use of social security numbers, for instance. And
yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit, right? So for folks that don't know, PDJ was a brokerage company, information brokerage company. The owner of the company actually happened to have passed away recently, completely unrelated to this arrest of some former employees, I think. So basically, like you had mentioned, there were some issues with social security numbers being exchanged, and really what it came down to is somebody made this person allegedly an offer they couldn't refuse, right? So they're lining their pockets on knowingly that they can, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. We sign up for all these services and we click the button saying we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, we're not going to do this. They did it, and money was a driving factor. And you look at fraud, and essentially this was fraud, and you look at the fraud triangle, right? Everybody says, hey, look at the fraud triangle, and the money is part of that, right? That need to have extra income. And I don't know, I know one of the people, don't know them personally, but I had dealings with them. The other people I don't know, and I don't know what their financial situations were, what drove them to do it. But man, they got popped, and it's a
they
real
sure
deal.
did.
Yeah, it's a real deal.
I never have in the past worked with PDJ. Hadn't had a need to or anything, so it wasn't any reason not to. But looking at the court documents that I've seen now, looking at the news articles that have shown, the pleading guilty to different crimes. Clearly, there's a problem there. Yeah. But let's not fool ourselves. There's others out there doing the same thing almost daily. And you got to know who you're working with. And you got to know if you're going to delve into things that are impacted by Gramm-Leach-Bliley, for instance, FCRA issues. And if you listen to this and don't know what those two things are, Google it.
Please Google.
Hugely important. But, those kind of things dealing with financials, you better know how they're collecting. To me, if I'm going to be working with somebody and they tell me they're getting stuff legally, prove it. And if they're not willing to prove it, then I'm not working with them.
Yeah.
It's plain. Don't tell me that's proprietary information or any of that kind of stuff. No. You don't want my money then, or my client's money, because we're not going to do anything that puts me in a position that's going to harm my business and, more importantly, my family.
Well, and that's the thing, when the music stops, like, your client doesn't care about you. If they get called to the carpet, the first person they're going to point their finger at is, oh, the investigator got it. Right.
That's right.
And then if we go and we try and point the finger at our broker, it don't matter. Right. You did something you weren't supposed to do. Not knowing that you're not supposed to do it is not innocence, right?
Yeah, we're the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to that. We will be thrown under the bus immediately. There's cases upon cases.
Yes.
Google that, and you will see who's the first one to go under the bus, and it'll be the investigator. They did this, they did that.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to surround yourself with good, solid, ethical people.
Yeah.
And you need to just distance yourself from those other ones that unfortunately hurt this profession.
Yep.
Every profession has unethical, criminal people in it. It doesn't matter whether it's doctors, lawyers, police, whatever, janitors, truck drivers.
People suck.
Every profession has it.
People in general suck. It's
I like to think most people are good, but every profession is going to have that percentage that just does that stuff. Right. And you got to stay away from that. And all you can do is do your best and hold up the appropriate flag and show that you're on the side of right.
Yeah. And if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
Trust your instincts.
Your instincts will definitely tell you,
it's something like licensing. That's, some people get licensed, some people don't. My personal opinion, licensing in this country for our profession completely does not work. But it's still the law. So I get licensed, right?
Right.
Even though I think it's, it's almost irrelevant. But it is what it is. So, it's a simple thing. So you go out and do it. You get the insurance. You don't lie about getting the insurance that your clients want you to have. You go get it.
Right.
I mean, I've heard story upon story of people taking old insurance things and basically doctoring them and giving them to the client because,
well,
they're not going to get sued.
Here's another problem. Don't lie to your insurance carrier when they're giving you, like when you're renewing.
Well, yeah.
Because they won't cover you if you have a problem. If you're falsifying information to get a lower quote or whatever, like that can be a big problem too. Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, people do these things, and you just got to wonder, how are you even in business?
Yeah.
It amazes me, some of the well-known people that we all know. I'm not naming names on here because I don't want those issues. But there are names out there that most of us know has been in the game for a long time that are doing unethical things, and they just seem to get away with it.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind. I don't know how their clients accept it. I don't know how this profession accepts it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I like to stay in my lane and just kind of focus on what my business is doing, because I know if I ever do get called to the carpet, I want to be able to do that. And giving a deposition, they're gonna hunt. They're gonna really look for things. I've had many questions on this stuff, and the same question asked over and over again, maybe 4 different ways, trying to get you to slip up on stuff. And at the end of the day, if you're doing things ethically the way you're supposed to do it, the answer is going to be the same 100% of the time.
Right. And don't forget what you're saying, and those things end up in a record. So somebody later down the line, you say something on the stand in court, that's there forever. So you need to be doing the right thing so you don't have those kind of problems. And it's even how we treat ourselves in this profession. There's another ethical thing.
Sure.
That we all have our moments, and we maybe send that email we shouldn't.
Yep.
I've done it myself, especially as leaders of group. You get a little heated. You're doing this volunteer stuff, and you push send when you probably should have sat on that email for
always wait a day. Never send an email in anger.
Yeah, I'm better about it now, but I definitely had my moments, and there may be a few people here that got an email from me through the years that are listening. I'm sorry, but all you can do is try to improve on that. But other things with them is you got association politics, which I've seen both the good and the bad on that, and had personal impacts on that. That amazes me when everybody volunteers and is supposed to be trying to help our profession, and then there's all this backstabbing going on, or you're working with your fellow professional and you're not paying them.
Yeah.
And they have to hound you down for months and months and months, and you're at least not, why aren't you communicating with them? Maybe you have a financial issue or whatever the situation is, but at least talk to them.
Yeah.
And say, look, I'm trying, or this or that, instead of just like ghosting them. As I've been involved in associations through the years, especially in like ethics committees and disciplinary committees, I would get those kind of calls and emails saying, help me, Peter, so-and-so I did, $1,500 worth of work for, and it's 4 months down the line. And they'd ask me or the committee to get involved and try to mitigate those things. And it's happened so many times through my career.
Get a retainer.
Well, get a retainer, or at the very least, if you're going to, tell hey, if you can't pay them when the job's done, you're waiting for the client to pay you, at least tell them up front, once I get paid, you'll get paid. That gives that person the opportunity to say, okay, that's not the way I operate. I choose not to work with you on this project. That's perfectly fine. Or, but if you say something, you got to let them know, or, if you can, in my opinion, pay them immediately. That's the best case scenario. but at least be honest, and don't just ghost them. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So let's touch real briefly on some field investigator issues. Primarily trespassing, right? Being really, really careful. When you see an opportunity to gather information, you really need to ask yourself, should I be here? Do I have the right to go in this particular area? Do I have the right to fly this drone in this area or do this stuff like that? You really got to be careful on that stuff. Because at the end of the day, you could collect information that could hit a home run for your case. But if it was tarnished in any way, it could get thrown out. And if that's the reason that the case, your client loses that case because of that very reason, they weren't able to put that information into the case.
Right.
There's some liability there on your end. You got to be careful of that, right?
Yeah, and that's where you got to know your state laws. You got to know, we can't all be attorneys and be experts on everything all the time. But I mean, if there's an area that you're working on, you should know trespassing laws. You should know the basic privacy laws. You should know that, you should know that it's not okay to put a listening device in someone's house and sit out in a van and listen to it. Right? I mean, I think you and I agree that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, that's
right. So, I mean, but you should also know that you shouldn't be, using your video camera to look down their hallway into the bedroom, even if you're out in the street. I mean, there's limitations for surveillance. And, there is easy research to figure out what's right in your state and what's not.
Yeah.
And, you're just going to hurt yourself and your client by not doing that.
I would say Google eavesdropping laws. That's a good way to get a sense of it.
Sure.
Know the states that are one-party states and two-party states, right?
For recording. Absolutely.
Really important. Those are good tips for folks just to,
My own state's changing right now. So if you read the statute in Michigan, it looks like we're a two-party state. But many case law, all the way up to the courts here, have made it a one-party state. Now they're readdressing it, and now they're talking about going back the other way. So, I mean, and unless you're following this, you can find yourself in a problem.
So what would you suggest if somebody's doing a witness interview and they're in, let's say, New York, right? And they've got the person you're calling has a cell phone number that has an exchange from Michigan. Do they have the right to record that person?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And again, we're not lawyers here, by the way. We're just giving
not even close. We work for a living, that's why. My little slam on lawyers. Yeah. I would say I would err on the side of caution with that.
Yep.
Unless there was something truly a life at stake moment, I might push the envelope there. But generally speaking, I mean, immediate loss of life at stake. I would probably err on the side of caution and try to get a agreed upon recorded statement. Yep. I would go that route. I would talk to the clients first. Yep. I would explain the things. I would get legal advice. I wouldn't just automatically make that decision myself.
Yeah, and you can always work it into the conversation too when you first get on the phone with them. Hey, I'm Matt. I'm calling from New York. Got your number here. Are you in New York right now? No. I'm in Michigan. Okay. Now I know the parameters here. Or I'm in New York. How'd you find me? Like that kind of stuff.
Right. So you gotta know all the details of that, but
right.
If you can get them to say it's okay to record, then you're fine, right?
That too.
That's in many cases they will say no, but again, you better know what's going on with your laws and feel confident that your client, if you're working with an attorney, I mean, working with an attorney is one thing. Working with a corporate client or a client off the street, just, that's a whole different thing too, because now that opens up all sorts of ethical questions.
Sure.
Sure. what are these folks going to do with this information?
I think when it comes down to it, it's just always err on the side of caution, and have a really rock solid retainer. Review your retainer and make sure that you're spelling out, terms of liability, expectations, things like that. So, there's no question about it. If the music does stop, you want to make sure you have a chair.
I would venture to say that I don't know how many folks listen to your program. I hope it's thousands upon thousands, but most of the people listening to this do not have a retainer.
Yeah, scary.
I mean, from traveling around the country, working with folks, I don't think that's a majority of investigators are working with retainers contracts of any type.
So, it blows my mind because, like, when you're filling out your insurance questionnaire, like, they ask you those questions. Do you have this stuff? And that's part of the formula. My guess would be that if you do have a retainer, I would probably guess that your rates may be a little bit cheaper if you have that type of
depending on the case and what you're asked to do, all that kind of stuff. Is it a one-off, or are you going to be working for them for a lot, time period, that kind of thing? I have some clients that I see take care of for a special project that I do quarterly. And so I have a long-term retainer with them, and financially it's better for them and it's great for me too. So, I mean, so that's different than all of a sudden they call them up and say, hey, Pete, I need you and the guys to do this for me tomorrow. It's a one-off.
Yeah. No, definitely. And the other thing is, like, if you're working with somebody that you're unfamiliar with, even like when I get calls for attorneys from out of state, and I don't know who they are, sign my retainer and fill out this credit card authorization because I'm going to run your credit card and that's how I'm going to get paid. That's just the way I'm going to do it. I don't want to deal with checks or having to wait because I can't litigate. I'm going to start an action in New York and then go get it localized and try and collect that way. It's a nightmare. No, just give me a credit card. And if you try and dispute those charges, I got the retainer to back it up. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And you and I, like, we shouldn't be offended if somebody asked us to sign a retainer or give a credit card information.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, like most of my clients now are corporate and government clients, and they don't use credit cards. They still, that's just the way it is. Now I have contracts with them and that kind of stuff, but so I've got to deal with that. I almost never deal with a off the street client anymore. Yeah, because I've just refined what I do for work. But if I did, it would be about credit cards. But your corporate clients, many of them, especially if it reaches over a certain amount, like over $1,000, they're not going to give you a credit card number. It has to go through and this whole kind of thing. And that's the bad part about dealing with corporate clients is you've got to wait time sometimes to get those payments because they're trying to hold off as long as they can.
Of course, right? They want the purchase order number and all that nonsense.
Right. So, I mean, that's it really depends on who your clients are. Attorneys can be terrible about paying too. We know that many attorneys, regardless of what they sign. Of course, when you're late paying them, they're right there.
No comment.
Yeah, exactly. I got an ethical question for you.
Okay.
You're licensed in New York, right?
Yep.
And let's assume you're not licensed in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And you're running a surveillance, and the person you're following runs into Massachusetts. What do you do?
First of all, I'm going to say I love the Berkshires. It's a fantastic. The Berkshires. They go to the Berkshires. I hope that's where we're going in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I did an episode with Brian Willingham, who Brian is amazing, right?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's the blog guru here, and we did a whole episode on this, right? So what it comes down to, and again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice or anything like that. If you're originating in New York, right? If from the get-go, when you're picking this person up, it starts in New York and they go over state lines into Massachusetts, you should continue and you should follow. Now, if it could blow back on you, it really could, especially in New York. If you come from Massachusetts into New York, there's definitely, if you look at General Business Law 7, you're violating it. Now, are they going to enforce it? Probably not. Is a judge going to throw that information out? Probably not. There is a chance, though, it could happen. Now, if you're starting in, like, knowingly starting in Massachusetts, let's just say, hey, my client lives in Westchester, but I know they're going to the Berkshires for the weekend, and so pick them up in the Berkshires. You better have a Massachusetts investigator involved in some way on that case, to basically get under the umbrella of having a licensed investigator from that state helping you out on that stuff, because that's where it could really blow back and cause you some problems. That was the general consensus, because there really is no yes you can or yes you can't. You'll never get that straight answer out from people. Yeah,
I agree with yours, and if it was his also analysis of that, because I mean, just like here in Michigan, you can be down Toledo, Ohio is a big city, and it's right on the edge of Michigan, and most people in Michigan down there over the line work in Toledo. So if you're running a surveillance in Michigan and you end up down going in Ohio, no one stops. And I can also tell you that I know, for instance, in Michigan courts, many times the judge, when it's brought up, if the case ends up in court, will go, that's a regulatory matter and it has no bearing here.
Yeah.
And I've heard that in other states too. I was just kind of curious, because I know that's something that, a lot of people do surveillance in our profession, and you run across those issues. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of licensing in this country, at least the way it's done, because I don't think it's effective. I think it's more of a tax, but because there's really no enforcement. Yeah. And so
that's the issue here. There's no enforcement, right? So our lobbyist pushed for, we were trying to get a felony to operate as a private investigator unlicensed in New York, and we had to settle on like a Class B misdemeanor. All right. What does that mean? It means nobody's ever going to bust your chops on it.
Well, let me tell you, it's been a felony in Michigan since 1965.
Okay.
And so it means all the way up until 2000, 2001, we were regulated by the state police, and then we went to consumer industry, whatever it's called. And it's still a felony. No one's ever been charged or convicted of a felony in this state without license. And prosecutors in the counties and the AG's office, they just don't care.
Yeah.
Because they just look at that and they go, whatever, we got more important things to look at.
So here's the more important issue, and where you could run into some problems. Are you going to go to jail? No. Are you going to get fined? No, probably not. Can your information get thrown out?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, absolutely. It throws it, if you're going to end up in court with it, right. But as we know, for instance, the insurance folks that are doing all the insurance work, most of those cases don't ever end up in court.
No.
The insurance companies are just using this to mitigate and, come up with some sort of lower number.
Exactly.
So they can settle. I'm not suggesting people cross state lines or not. I'm just saying you got to think about that. That's really the whole purpose of that question to you.
Yeah, just keep it in mind. I think that's a good point.
Really, you make your own decision, but since we're talking about ethics, there's one that's a tough one for our profession, because everybody has a different answer.
Absolutely.
It's not as cut and dry as wiretapping, for instance.
No, you got it. Or murder,
there is that.
But, all right, man, we're going to wind down here. We've actually got into overtime here. But I love talking about this stuff, and I don't know if I'm the only one. And maybe
me too.
Maybe there's 10 people left listening. So thank you, 10 people.
So it's been a pleasure being here and talking with you about it. I think this stuff's important.
Yeah.
It has been important. It will be important, and it needs to be thought about. And I hope people out there get involved and listen and learn, and latch on to people that have been around. Make your own decisions ultimately, but try to learn. Pick up a book.
Yeah, Kitty's book. You can start there.
Yeah. There's a lot. Then there's a lot of good books out there now.
Yeah, even like George Gerges put out like a 95-page ethics handbook through InSpy last year. Nice. And actually, I have it in the Investigators Toolbox. So if you are a member of Investigators Toolbox, it's actually in there in the form section. What a great resource. I mean, really, really great resource. And again, is it the be all end all? No, but is it to help you point you in the right direction? Yes, and that can only help. So, all right, we're gonna shut down here. So, Peter, thank you so much. And I know you'll be back.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week on the next show.
What a great chat. Peter and Matt covered many great topics on ethics. We want to thank Peter for his drive to help educate those in the industry. Make sure you check out Intellenet and how to become a member. We also like to thank Crosstracks, Merlin Locate, and Delve Point and PI Institute of Education for sponsoring this show. So please support these great sponsors of ours. Have you checked out investigatorstoolbox.com yet? You can join through the app available on iOS and Android platforms. You'll be able to access the whole site right from your iPhone or Android phone. There's no better time than today to sign up for the site. Just 49 cents a day, you can take advantage of some great networking, training, and data resource management. And if you use code PIP201836, you'll save an extra $20. If you have a question or comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next Monday with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.